Remember when you were in the 4th grade and I was in 3rd and I smacked you across the face with a bat?
How could I forget?
Maybe you had that thing where you forget from getting hit in the head?
Amnesia?
Yeah. Anyway, I was trying to remember. Why'd I do it?
I don't know.
You must have done something.
No, I never do anything to anybody.
That's stupid. Of course you do.
Look, it's not stupid, George. You just attacked me.
A kid doesn't just attack for no reason.
You always attack for no reason.
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing?
Good, brother. How are you?
Brother!
I forgot to say your name. You're Ryan.
Thank you, brother. I'm going for a Metal Gear Solid approach for brother.
Yeah, I was going for something completely unrelated. Sorry.
Completely unrelated.
Hug me, brother.
Perhaps you'll explain it in vivid detail. That's what this podcast is about. Spit and Polish presents Bartek explaining brother to us all for an hour. I'm waiting.
Oh, we're starting now?
I'm starting now.
You see, when your parents have a second boy and you're a boy, I forgot to establish that. If you're a boy and your parents have a second boy, that is your brother. But there are certain types of brothers that come from different situations, such as remarriages, or when there is a remarriage and they have one new after the marriage, and then that's your half-brother.
Are you explaining this specifically just to me or to everyone? Are you explaining this concept just specifically to me or to everyone listening?
Well, it depends, Ryan. Are you listening to the recording or are you listening to me right now?
Oh, okay. Because I ask because you said it like when you have a second boy, that's a brother. And then you've explained all this other stuff. Like, well, there's other ways. Like a first boy could be a brother. Like you're the first boy and you're a brother.
Yes, sorry.
I'm the second boy.
Should have said
and I'm a brother.
It's the noun brother.
Well, I'm the one boy in my in my siblings.
Yeah, you're not
and
the
I'm
second boy.
I'm not the second boy. So I guess I'm not a brother in your definition at the start of this.
Yeah, but it was a pretty funny explanation.
It was a great explanation. I'm clapping on the inside, of course. But in all sincerity, we are not here to talk about Brothers, the film. I'm sure there's a film called Brothers. I know there's Step Brothers, and there's Four Brothers, and there's Brothers at Arms, and so on and so on.
Brother Bear?
Never saw Brother Bear.
Don't think I have either.
Is that the one with Rick Moranis as a bear?
I don't know. I think off podcast we were talking about it a few weeks ago, and we're like, is that open season? Is that Brother Bear?
Yeah, and there was also the Barnyard one.
Yeah, animal movies.
Animal films, yes. But we are actually here to talk about a film that is not animal-centric, unfortunately. There's no real animal content in the film we're talking about today.
There's an actor that played animals in other films.
Oh, who?
Josh Peck.
Oh, only Josh Peck?
Off the top of my head,
Off the top of your head? Well, one of these actors was in Teen Wolf, the TV series. So maybe...
Do they play an animal?
Well, they play a wolf man, so yeah.
No, that's pretty animal.
They turn into a wolf. I'm
pretty
not
100% animal, but that's pretty animal.
I've never watched Teen Wolf. My sister has, so maybe I'll phone up my sibling and they can assure me that they are not one of the wolf people. But I saw a picture of them.
That sibling's not a brother.
No. They are superior because they're older than me. So much older than me.
Superior sister.
Yes. But we are here to talk about a movie that has come recommended here on Pictures Powwow. We sit down, have a chat about a film that has come our way. And sometimes the recommendation cycle will dictate a certain mood, perhaps, or a certain theme. And with this in particular, we got Bartek pitching one this week.
This was my pick.
And you're on your Hollywood pick cycle. Like, you go one time it's Hollywood, not the other time you recommend it's
anything but Hollywood.
But you had a specific motive behind this choice, which you can talk about. Like, you have a bit of history, and you gave us an ultimatum at the end of the last discussion of which path, all of us.
I don't think the listening people got a choice.
They chose my side, the right side. But we go about each week. Someone gives a recommendation. You this week, it will be me for the next one, and then the one after that. the listening people. That's right. The listening people have a voice. They can voice their film recommendations. We add it to the list, and then eventually we get around and watch it and discuss it. Bartek, what was the film that you gave us, and what was all of this hubbub about the film? Why this film? What was the lead-in? What was this ultimatum that you gave us for those who may not have watched the anime last week? That is our podcast.
The anime last week. Previously on Spit and Polish Presents Pictures Powwow. Ryan, I've got a choice for you. Do you want to watch something that we've both seen or something that neither of us have seen?
To be accurate, you have to take up a quarter to nearly half of the runtime explaining what happened last time to be accurate to the anime we grew up with.
At the end, we have to sing the OP together.
Of course.
Of just wow, all of the nuggets from our YouTube channel.
Thank you.
So the ultimatum, the very appropriate word for what I did, was exactly what I just reenacted there. I asked you to pick one of two options, where one of the films would be something that I know we've both seen because we've talked about it. We literally talked about it in that previous episode, just coincidentally. And the other one was something that I know neither of us have seen because I mentioned it like 2 weeks ago, and yeah, you weren't familiar with it.
And that's what we decided upon.
Mm-hmm.
And what film is that for those needing a bit of a reminder in case they've looked away from the title?
Yep. So
of
this
the pod?
This is a 2004 independent film called Mean Creek.
Yes.
I almost said Wolf Creek.
Yes.
We've done Wolf Creek 2 already.
We will never do Wolf Creek 1. We only did 2.
Ryan's seen it.
I have seen it. Have you?
No.
Shame. Which one of your friends was it, Stefan, that's obsessed with Wolf Creek?
He's the one that picked it and came on with us.
Yeah, so he's obsessed. Mean Creek, an interesting title, but what could it mean? Now,
Creek.
It does involve a body of water.
Mm-hmm.
They call it a river throughout the entire thing. They never call it a creek, but that's fine.
That's true.
I'll let it go. They didn't want to call it Mean River.
I would have gone with the Mean Water.
Mean Water, yeah. But this is a movie about a group of people, teens and young people, who make a revenge plan against the school bully. That's the most basic summary I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
Things
that's basically
do not go as expected.
That's basically the synopsis you'll see online of it, like a IMDb.
Go watch it for yourself if you have not, or if you are worried about being spoiled, because we are going to discuss the film, and this is one in which it does in part rely upon the twists and turns of the narrative and or just the interesting angles it takes on the story.
Yeah.
Even if you are, like myself, aware almost immediately what's going to happen in the film, the way that they examine the characters is not as straightforward as one may assume.
Yeah.
At least for myself.
I'd previously heard a basic summary that included, the kind of twist that happens in the film, and yeah, it obviously impacted it a little bit. But what the film was doing still worked for me.
I had not seen this before, had not heard of it. The only thing I knew was you talking about how you were aware of a singular scene from it, and that Josh Peck is in this film, and he's in that famous scene for you.
Yeah.
So I was waiting the entire runtime of the movie for that scene to pop up, and when it did, I knew immediately it was the scene because of its use of language, and I guess the dissonance and humor for people who are big Josh Peck heads.
Yeah.
To see him at the very beginning of Drake and Josh, because the show had just started
apparently,
at the time that this was around.
Yeah, apparently when this film was released, it was within like 4 days of the premiere or something.
So you get to have you juxtapose
fuck
it
you,
with,
Clyde, you little faggot, with hug me, brother.
Yes, there you are. And I've never watched Drake and Josh. It was not really a show for me, or one that I had easy access to.
Yeah.
I've talked about this very much over the years with Amanda Bynes, and there's just a whole era of that.
Yeah, you didn't have Nickelodeon,
Disney,
but you'd
Nickelodeon
seen some
and,
Nickelodeon films. I
yes,
guess, yeah.
the films I have seen of these, but not the TV shows because I didn't have cable and
yeah.
and whatnot. But Mean Creek, I didn't really know what I was getting in for, but as soon as it opened up and Josh Peck was beating up a Culkin, I was in. And then they laid out the plan, and it was oh so obvious what the story was going to be. And you meet characters, and I just snapped my fingers when you're this archetype, you're this archetype, you're this archetype. So when the dominoes fall, you'll react like this, you'll react like that, you'll react like this. And I was pretty bang on the money with those things, especially having seen films like this before, or even covered films like this before. I no shock to say this is not the same tonally, but it did make me think of Very Bad Things in terms of, oh no, a group of people have accidentally, again, spoiler, murdered someone, and they have to cover it up, and the kind of fucked up person in the group becomes the alpha and dictates what they do going forward, but the rest of them are riddled with guilt in varying fashions. It does it in a different way, of course. The majority of the film is not that. That's mainly like the last 20 minutes of the movie.
The first 55% of the film, is kind of this odd adventure film, and then the last, chunk of it is, the kind of the darker aspect of the film.
I was very much thinking of films like What's Eating Gilbert Grape or Stand By Me.
Stand By Me came up in my head, yeah. It does feel like it's got a slight bit of like an 80s throwbacky thing, like
90s, 80s,
following just a bunch of young kids who are like the driving force of the film. Like we hear about, adults in their life, but we don't really see them all that much until like the last half.
Yeah, it's a coming of age story to start with, but tell us a bit more about your journey with this film, when you were first made aware of it, that scene in particular, and what was your experience watching it now?
I forget exactly when I saw that scene, but it was something that went like minorly viral, back in the 2000s, because as you rightfully said, like, Josh Peck, had an image about him for a lot of people, whether it was, from the Amanda Show or Drake and Josh, as this like funny, goofy guy. Like last week, when I told you this film and it's got Josh Peck in it, you're like, oh, you just want to hear my Josh Peck impression. Like,
which he does do.
Which he does do a little bit, yeah.
Jeez.
And I'd forgotten this. He was
wife jackets.
He was the secondary bully in Drill Bit Taylor, and I was skimming through our old episode on that, and you were talking about how, the last time I saw Josh Peck was like Snow Day, so now he's like older and he's very handsome, and it's a very different vibe. This is kind of like in that middle period. Where I guess he's fully in like teenage mode.
This is what a majority of people would know him looking like this era of his life. The big fat guy who not in this film, but like funny and quippy and whatnot. Well, I knew him as like a small kid, and then
man of La Mancha.
Yeah, and then as like nowadays, where he's like a really fit adult with like a fucking square jaw and muscles, and I'm like, okay,
big social media presence too.
yes
Yep. So it was just this funny little thing of like, wow, that is not only very different from everything I've seen him in, but also it's, as you said before, like very sharp and pointedly bad swearing and slurring, and it was just really extreme, and it just stuck with me, and I'd forgotten it for quite a long time. And then like a year or two ago, I heard someone mention it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing. I wonder what that film is even like. So it's just something that I've had, on the back burner of like, I want to, cover this at some point and actually see like, what are the merits of it? Like, I did not know if this was like a good film or a bad film.
Yeah.
So when I recommended it last week, I think I did have an air of like, let's see what it's like.
Yeah, it was a bit of a journey of a film, because I did not like it, because it was of an ilk that I'm not a particular lover of. Although this is from 2004, it feels very much like a 1990s movie. I was constantly thinking of 90s films like Your American Beauty or Reality Bites or stuff like that, or even What's Eating Gilbert Grape. This, I guess, melancholy, malaise, kind of grunge era, looking at what it's like to be alive and what it's like to be young and disaffected and your peers. And I was just thinking of those type of movies where I guess the best way to describe it is like that kind of twee effect of
Mm.
those 90s coming of age movies or examinations of what it is to be alive. Like I brought up American Beauty, and it's specifically like one character who in that film is always filming things as well. And you get he's filming a paper, like a fucking plastic bag blowing in the wind, and you get a monologue about like, oh, the futility of life, blah, 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 wanky, wanky. And I was just like, oh God. And
I think I've seen that parody.
yes. And then that's what this film was for such a long time, especially with the Josh Peck character, where he's this crazy bully, but actually he's a sensitive soul, and just everyone, and the music was constantly playing throughout this, and it was just the flavor of the music really was something that would have lined up with many of those films that I'm reflecting back upon that I'm not a huge fan of. It's not even that I would say like the beginning of this film or all those films I'm referencing are bad movies, but they're just not my cup of tea. And so I kind of think I talked about this a bit when we did Brick, for instance, where Brick had that kind of like, oh, here it is, this kind of like hipstery way of looking at what it is to be young, but then but it had like the genre elevation of like a noir story going on. This has its own genre-y elevations or dramatic conceits that brings it out of what I felt to be such a boring film at the start. Like I was sitting there being like, oh God, it's one of these films. Oh no. But it does things along the way, and there's certainly turning points in which by the end of it all, I actually had a really good time with the movie. Hence, this was a bit of a roller coaster ride experience in which I was just so against it at the beginning. I was like, oh, fuck me. We're watching one of these films, one of these fucking Ben Stiller-like movies where Ben Stiller directed Reality Bites and Secret Life of Walter Mitty and such, where it's just like, it's kind of, I just keep calling it like faux philosophy mentality of like, oh, aren't I so deep because I also know lyrics to Radiohead songs, and I'm just like, oh, fucking kill me. But it evolved for me.
Yeah, my experience was not too different from yours, but not as, I guess, pessimistic at the beginning. Certainly when we had the first scene, which was on the camera and Josh Peck beating up a Culkin, as you said, like that brought me in right away. But then the next couple of scenes where we're being introduced to like the rest of the characters, I think was kind of on the same page there of like, okay, we're meeting our characters and the mood of the film's kind of low. There are some nice little dynamics. Like I like the dynamic between the two brothers. It reminded me of, some other like family friends that I had growing up, like the older relative or the older family friend. Then you meet like his other friends. It reminded me a little bit of the dynamics that like a similar figure in my life had. But thinking back on it from, after watching the film, like once Josh Peck kind of got brought back in the film, like the energy kind of raised for me. I was enjoying it a lot more. And I know that, we've made our liking of Josh Peck kind of obvious on the podcast, like whenever he's come up. So it almost feels a bit like, big surprise when Josh Peck's on screen, you guys are into it. But I actually think he did a really good job in this film.
He is the thing that elevates it to something more. If he wasn't in it, and it's not just his performance, but that character and the way that the film plays with him as a character, they really want you to like him and hate him at the same time.
It wants you to feel conflicted,
because one of the major sticking points I had at the beginning, outside of all of the, I guess, let's call them aesthetic problems that I was just discussing, was they made the dramatic choice of the beginning of like, this is a revenge story where this kid's asked his brother and his friends to help him get revenge, or like it's spun out into this. And I found the characters all to be so two-dimensional at the start. Like they're just dickhead assholes who are like reveling in the idea of beating up a fat kid or hurting a fat kid and
humiliating
them. And the way that the script was written at the start, when I wasn't on the movie side, I found it eye-rolling, and I was constantly thinking to myself, is there not like one normal fucking person? Is there not like one? And you meet the brothers, like that one guy and his brother and the friend and all of that, and I was like, is there not like a fucking normal human being here? Because it's very movie at the start where like everyone's on the same, like everyone's like, yeah, and you're this character where like
it goes back to that like kind of childish whimsy in a way where it's like, oh yeah, this is going to be our revenge story and he's going to be humiliated and then, all will be right with the world because we'll get back at him.
And I will say, talking about negative criticisms, I still think at the end of this, there were some characters that weren't introduced in a memorable way or in a way that left as much of a mark as they could have. Specifically, the one whose parents are the
two gay dads.
The two gay dads. I kept wondering like how he fit into this group's dynamics at all, and he looks significantly younger than the other two.
I was actually getting confused with him too. Like, wait, is he from the primary school side or is he from the secondary school side?
No, he's from the secondary school side.
I know he's from the secondary
school
side,
but
yeah.
The other two actors are adults. Like, one of them's Scott from Eurotrip, which I'm sure you must have been pumping your fist about. You're like,
Scotty does knows it as well.
Yes. But he looked like an actual child, and so it was kind of confusing. And like Josh Peck is like, we're the same age. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, because
he's been held back.
Josh Peck's been held back so many times because he's got a learning disability and behavioral problems. But I thought he's like the kid with the two gay dads. I thought his character was very poorly like integrated in the beginning of this film. I liked his character a lot, and that's why I'm saying that. Where I kept wondering, why is he a part of this group? Is he the same age as them? I guess there was so much dissonance that was not being addressed, and I still don't think were really addressed. I think a lot of it was production side of it, in which they cast an actor who looks a lot younger than the other two, and so me as an audience is like, wait, is he like a brother to one of these guys? And he's there, and like he doesn't want to smoke, and like he's anti what they're all about, and I'm like, why are you hanging out with them then? And we're never shown like, oh, he hangs out with them because they're kind of cool. We're never shown like there's just a lot of that element to it where I guess
you do get somewhat of an impression that he's more friends with the Rocky, like the older brother of the main kid.
Yeah.
Who is a bit more cool than Marty, who's the douchey one.
Of course. I thought Marty was great, but he's also like a great movie character. Like the one who's like, you immediately look at him and say, oh, you're the psychopath of the group. Okay, got it. You're the hothead. You're the one that's a fucking asshole. But yeah, I will say, like, at the beginning, it took me a while to get over how much of a movie this was because of the aesthetic stuff and the fact that not one person, until they're actually on the trip, comes across like a human being with, like, remorse or ability of introspection or anything resembling that until the female character comes into the movie, and I'm like, oh, hello, thank you. Finally someone who's like, this is weird.
Yeah, I do agree with you with the two-dimensional thing, but it feels like it's on purpose because when they finally do bring Josh Peck on the trip and they start talking to him, getting to know him, reality really starts hitting for almost everyone that like, this guy isn't like a complete monster. Like they straight up say later on, like, yeah, we were going to humiliate you, but we didn't because we started to like you. It's only really like the Scotty character that, wants to still go through with the revenge in the end.
Of course.
So in a way...
Kind of. There's more layers to it because...
it becomes more three-dimensional as it goes on.
Because certain characters change their minds and become complicit. Millie, in particular. But
while Josh Peck is still alive, though.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I'm talking about that too, where we'll get into that. But but again, this is still like my introductory phase of it. Like, But then once Josh Peck was introduced, he really brought the film alive for me. The film was treating him with humanity, with layers, with depth, with tenderness, but also, I guess, antagonism to us, the viewer, because he is a classic bully character, and you see the worst of him, and you see that he's like a liar, and he's constantly just pulling shit out of his ass, and he's all of these things, and that's there like poking you, the audience, being like, aren't you reflexively not going to like this character? And then they also give you all of these sympathetic qualities to him.
It also shows you that other side of the bully character, where it's the insecure side, the reason why they're bullying. You always hear the reasons, like they're insecure, they they have social issues, things like that. Like all of that is
Development issues.
All of that is showcased to us, very quickly into him joining them on the trip.
And it highlights the lacking traits of the other characters, like Marty, for instance. He has a tragic backstory with his dad that is briefly introduced when we first, like one of the first times we really get him and his family, and then obviously in the big scene on the boat. But with Josh Peck and who he is and how he is, it almost like shines a spotlight on like what's Marty's excuse for being such a shitty guy. Because like Josh Peck like is a mirror of this character, and like, oh, how similar they are to one another, and yet they both don't recognize that. Like, they're both impulsive and quick to anger and violence, and yet don't recognize like their role in that. Like, I really was bowled over by the Josh Peck scene where he was talking about like, hey, remember that time
I was literally about to bring it up. Go ahead.
That time I hit you in the face with, well, I can't remember what it was, like a paddle or a yardstick or something. And why did that happen? And there must have been a reason. Like, a kid doesn't just attack for no reason. And
and Clyde was telling him, like, no, I wasn't doing anything. You just hit me for some reason. And Josh Peck, like, refuses to believe that he would have done that for no reason. It's, like, a really telling thing about him.
And Marty's similar in a way where he'll be quick to some cruelty, and he doesn't see it as a problem because, well, they're deserving of it. You must have been, this, or people aren't inherently bad, so they're tricking you. So he's coming across like a nice kid right now because he's trying to garner something. He's trying to get something. Oh, he just wants to be a friend. Like, there's a lot of this conversation throughout the movie with multiple characters of like, why is he being nice? Maybe he's just nice, or maybe he wants something. Even if he does want something, does it matter? He's being a person and being nice.
Why are we friends of ours all being nice to each other? Do we want something?
Yeah, totally on the money there. But the Josh Peck character, he was the standout. I didn't grow up with Peck as much as you. I just had Snow Day. That was basically it. And I didn't grow up with Max Keeble's big move.
That was between Snow Day and this.
Drillbit Taylor. And so I only knew him from one film, but he's very charismatic screen presence. And in this, I haven't seen much outside of those films. This is dramatic acting. I haven't seen dramatic acting from Josh Peck before. I don't know if Drake and Josh ever let him show any drama to him, his abilities. But
it does, but obviously it's, juggling with like, most of the time it's very goofy, but you do have the occasional serious moments.
But what are your thoughts on Josh Peck in that way, where you're someone who's more deeply ingrained in him as a figure in your life, and even on this podcast, he's very much known as like the funny guy, like I ran over Oprah, like all of that. Even most of the reviews you'll find online make comment of like, oh, this is a really fucked up episode of Drake and Josh, and the meme that you found was funny because he's the guy from the kids show. So what are your opinions more so on his performance and like what he gives and the character?
Yeah, well, Josh Peck in general, like I did see bits of the Amanda show, shortly after it ended, and I was there when Drake and Josh started. I remember, that show being billed as like, these two stepbrothers living together, and like that was around the time that I myself got a stepbrother, so I watched it with him. And it was a funny show that I could kind of relate to. And like I just said a few minutes ago, it does show a decent range of what those two actors could do. Like, obviously, there's the dynamic of, like, he's the kind of silly, goofy one. The other one's a bit cool and dumb. And they play around with that. There's a lot of episodes where, their relationship gets rocky. They're not able to relate on certain things, but then there are other places where they do get along really well. And, they sing Blues Brothers together and stuff like that. And then, seeing him after that, like I've seen Drillbit Taylor, and it almost felt like, a complete 180 where it's like, oh, he's the secondary bully character, the one that's less developed, but there he is right there. I remember he appeared on some YouTube videos. I remember there was one Dax Flame interviewing him, and it was interesting just seeing like the real Josh Peck, like talking about himself. I remember he talked about how, he was losing weight and wanted to be a good role model, and it, kind of humanized him. And then, seeing that clip from this film, it's like, whoa, he's going a bit crazy here, all these swear words and stuff. And yeah, watching the film now, the film begins with a scene that kind of shows like, oh yeah, he is that character from that scene I've seen. But then everything like between that opening and then getting to that scene, it was just really eye-opening at how like humanized this character is, and especially because I have gotten into my teaching job a little bit and meeting all sorts of kids from many different backgrounds, and some of them having learning disabilities. You really do see like the two sides of like uh when something activates in them that makes them behave in a way that isn't true to who they are inside versus how they are in just their free time. Like when we got that scene of, when Josh Peck's getting picked up and he's recording things with his camera and he's, saying all these kind of poetic lines about like, this is the inside of my mind, and showing his room and, filming his mum, and then his first couple of interactions with everyone in the car, it's like, okay, I'm actually seeing a different side to this character who...
He got the kid a present because they lure Josh Peck to this under the belief that it's a birthday party.
Yeah, and I was finding myself amazed that, like, yeah, this is a character who, as you said, Ryan, is built up from the very beginning to be like, oh yeah, this is a character you won't like, but I was liking him in spite of that. And every time he did kind of lean back into that, where he's throwing around like slurs and like snapping at someone, it's like, oh, come on, Josh Peck, I know you're better than that.
Well, yeah.
And when you eventually do get to that scene, the famous one, it almost reminded me of when we were talking about Vampire's Kiss, how that's a film that a lot of people, meme on. So one of the meme faces came from it. But then when you actually watch it, like in context, it is kind of like, emotionally impactful. Like this guy is falling into a dark place. He is not mentally well. Watching that scene, I was actually really sad, seeing like, oh no, Josh Peck, you were doing so well, and now everything's kind of crumbling.
Because also, like, that big monologue is like him rejecting everything.
Yeah.
He opened up. He opened up. He was trying to connect. He was trying his best, even though
it was awkward. It was awkward. But they could kind of understand that.
But he was successful many times. Like he did the water squirt gun one time, and it was a failure. Then the next time he did it, was genuinely funny.
Most of them couldn't help but laugh when he was doing the beatboxing.
Yeah, and like him with the camera would be successful or not, but like he was trying his best, and so the reveal that all of this was a pretense to punish him. He rejects everything that he's gone through. He rejects his beautiful little character journey and then just decides, well, I'll be the thing you want. Fuck you. Fuck all of you. And it's tragic in a way, because not only do you feel for the character, because if you have moral fiber like I do, you are never rooting for them to get any sort of revenge on this kid, because one, he's a child.
Yeah.
Even beyond what then the journey we go on of humanizing him. Two, it's just evil. Like, it's just an evil thing to do. Like, you're just watching a bunch of people want to strip this kid naked and throw him in a river and make him walk all the way back home. You're like, that's fucking cruel. And you're like Millie, where it's like, this is cruel for cruelty's sake. And like all of these things. And then that he's going to find out about it at some point, or the kids will have to do the revenge against him, and there's going to be the liar revealed. This is a great example of how to do liar revealed. This was
a really good liar reveal. Yeah, really tragic way of doing it.
Because you are complicit in it yourself, because you saw the character at the start and you're like, oh, this fucking kid. But then you feel opposite, and you're like me, say, or most people, where you are almost going against this revenge story because it doesn't have enough merit to it. Like, what they want to do to him is not good, and he hasn't been illustrated as a character worthy of having revenge put upon him in any significant way. Like, yeah, he beat up a main character. So like, okay, like that's it. Okay. He's a kid in high school, right? But, and they think it's very juvenile, their revenge plan as well. Like, they think it's nothing dangerous or, hurtful. But when the big snap scene happens in that monologue, yeah, you feel bad because of all of that stuff, but you also feel bad because his character is turning inward on himself hiding away all of these nuances, and he's just giving in to the persona, giving in to the rage and the anger and the things that gets him in trouble all of the time.
I had a read of Roger Ebert's review of the film. He gave it, I think, 3 out of 4, so pretty high rating. And he basically saw it as a sort of deconstruction of revenge stories, where in revenge stories, and we can relate this to Count of Monte Cristo, which we did a few weeks ago, the goal is always to, get revenge on someone, and once you get the revenge, like, all will be right in the world, which kind of ended up being the case in that film. Whereas this film looks at, like, okay, but what happens afterwards? And it shows, like, the kind of dark spiral and how the moral choices have everyone disagree with each other.
And they do a decent job of making the group all guilty. It's not just, Marty's character was never going to give up on punishing this child because he himself feels punished, and so he has to punish others because that's his deal, Marty's deal. Like, he has this wound in him because of his dad's death, and so he must inflict, like, justice or pain upon everyone else in his life.
Yeah, the word.
And then he's not just him, because each one of them, right before we accidentally kill this kid, they all make a choice that they're going to follow through on the plan, or they're going to follow through on some essence of it,
or at least be bystanders of it. Yeah,
because Josh Peck annoyed them. Millie, I brought up before, she says, let's play the game then. She didn't want to, and she was the voice of reason. She's the reason that they called off the plan in the first place, because she talked to the Culkin, and then he talked to his brother and so on. But then she switches up her mind because Josh Peck insulted her one too many times.
Yeah, the film deals with peer pressure a lot.
Peer pressure, yeah, and just snapping points. Because these are children. They're all children, teens, young adults. They aren't the most smart.
Yeah,
like, even Josh Peck calls them out on this. Like, you don't bring life jackets. It's stupid. All of that stuff. And it's kind of like ha-ha funny because he's like an overprotected child or whatever, but like he's right about everything. He's
right, and it's coming from the thing of like, oh, this child who, you would assume wouldn't know better is like, he's doing the whole thing. It's like, my mum said this, and it's actually like really genuine things. Like, oh, my mum says you shouldn't drink and drive. You've got to be pretty stupid to do that.
He has a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, as Scotty is like driving and drinking, being like, oh, well, I got permissions. It's all right.
Yeah, and there's moments where the Josh Peck character knows he's gone too far, or knows that things have become uncomfortable. He's not just completely oblivious to social cues. He has weaknesses of those, but he's not uncompromisingly blind. When Marty gets all upset about the dad stuff, like, Josh Peck responds in a very like obvious way where it's like, I was just joking around. I don't know the story of your life. Like, you're ripping my head off about something, but like, how am I supposed to know? And then later he reveals, actually, I did know.
I just remembered.
You fuck. Awesome scene. But
did you like when he said, bring on the penis?
Yes, it was very good.
I didn't know about that line walking in.
I think Millie was my favorite character overall. I thought she was an interesting player in the story. I thought the performance was really good. I liked her chemistry with every character. It was unique and different to them all, and her running away, like, they're all grief stricken, and then she just runs away and just somewhere to cry and scream in pain about how she doesn't want to be here. And I just thought that character was a well-needed addition to the story as well. Yeah. It's not just Josh Peck, but I think Millie brings the film an extra depth to it as well.
She's also got a very tragic arc. Like, she's introduced being like, the kind friend, and then her second scene is like, things to say on our date, and it's all like very, innocent things. Like, what's it like being a male?
She's in a weird way mirroring Josh Peck's character. They're the two we see get ready for this event, neither of which know what the true intentions are.
That's a good point, yeah.
Because she doesn't know until they're already on the trip, and she knows that they're there's something up here.
It's
and she has
only,
to pull
it's
them
only once
aside.
they get to like the forest that she asks, like, what is the deal with this?
Oh, I've got bitten. Oh, and it's really, what's going on? But yeah, I didn't think about it either until this conversation. Like they're the two characters we see prepping for the trip, and they don't know what the trip's really all about, but everyone else does.
Yeah, they're going to have a good time. Everyone else is like, well, there's a prank that we're doing.
Are you shocked to learn that the actor who played Marty, aka Scotty from Eurotrip, has very little to his resume of film and TV?
I always noted that I haven't seen him in too much. So when I looked at his resume, the fact that it wasn't very big wasn't too big of a surprise, but I would have assumed that, like, oh, there would have been a little bit more.
After watching this, I was really shocked at it. I thought he was fantastic in the movie. I thought, for the type of character he is, he isn't going too overboard with it, but he's also selling the damaged nature that you're needing of him. And I can believe why they're friends with him as well, mainly due to the acting rather than the scripting.
No, I can see that. Like in Eurotrip, he's a relatively standard main character guy. He's got some funny stuff going on there, but this really gave him a lot more to work with.
Yeah, I found him he had screen presence, and the fact he only has 18 credits to his name, and
I think that might even be overshooting, but maybe.
Yeah, and he hasn't done anything since 2017. It's just like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. After seeing a project like this, you'd want to see more from some of these actors. I know that the actress of Millie's kind of retired from acting.
She's in the military. Yeah.
And you got Culkin's still at it. Culkin will always be around, hovering in the entertainment industry.
I didn't look into him too much. Has he been in anything major?
Yeah, he was in Signs.
Oh, the Shyamalan film?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was in Signs, yes. And I'm pretty sure one of the other ones was one of the other people. Two people were in Shyamalan movies in this, one in Signs, one in The Sixth Sense, your favorite film. Of M. Night's. You love it. You always say, I watch that film over and over again. I love The Sixth Sense.
If only.
If only.
Yeah. And Josh Peck, as you like to bring up these days, was an Oppenheimer.
He was an Oppenheimer. He's been around the block a couple of times in the entertainment industry. Drobit Taylor, Oppenheimer. Same level of quality. Did Oppenheimer get nicknamed a silly nickname like a Dilbit Snailer or whatever it was? No, I don't think so. What else do you want to discuss about Mean Creek? Can I just say, terrible title. Mean Creek?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I don't know.
I don't even think that's the name of the actual creek in the movie. It's not like one of those that's see. It's very on the nose. They're on a creek and they're mean. They're so mean.
Why are they so mean?
Why are they so mean?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that is not what I'd go with. But then again, what would I go with?
I'm not too sure, but not Mean Creek.
Not Mean Creek.
How about A Million Things? There you go. That's a good one. It ties into the story.
Birthday River.
Sure. Anything else major you wanted to discuss about Mean Creek?
A couple of things, but first of all, the second half of the film, the part without Josh Peck, what did we think of that one?
It was fine. I think an issue with it is it's so short that it doesn't have the weight that I would want of it. So they bury him. That's also something I had an issue with. I just didn't find the reasoning for why they were going, the way the scenes was constructed of why they are in fact going to bury him and pretend like this. There was just too many gaping voids of logic for me to have to just block out for me to believe that, especially because so many, all of them were so vividly against it. And again, I've mentioned it before, but Very Bad Things, when that movie did that and that equivalent character did it, you could reasonably understand why they would all do that. There was far more of a, you look like you murdered this person. They're all adults in that movie. This, it did feel a bit like we need to do that. It felt like it was trying to do the thing where, as you said, the alpha of the group pushes everyone into it. And that is what happens in the film.
but I don't think the film quite sold that concept that well. Like, yeah, he does, go on top of the kid with the two gay dads and, like, rough him up a little bit. And he's definitely more stern than everyone else. He's always going back to, like, well, we need a plan. It's better than not a plan. And then everyone kind of eventually acquiesces to that and goes through with it. But it didn't quite feel like they were truly forced into doing something they didn't want to do. It kind of just seemed like, yeah, they just went along with it. And for the rest of the film, they were still showing the remorse and they just turned around on it.
Well, you're between a rock and a hard place, because what we're praising about the movie in the first half is the characters at first seem two-dimensional, but then you realize that they're very fleshed out and very nuanced and mature and level-headed, but also they fall to shortcomings. But in so doing, you in a way remove a little bit of that their children effect, because I can believe a child of Millie's age would succumb to the peer pressure of this, but at the same time, she feels the wisest of the group and the most morally convicted of the group. So it's kind of like, wait, now you're falling to the, what I'm talking about. But at the same time, there's things I could say that counter that as well. There's just a bit of a, but again, to me, the second half was good, but it's so bare bones and so short. Like, they all feel guilt for, like, a scene of them looking sad and music plays, or a character says, "Are you okay?" Cut to all of them, except for the alpha, has decided we're going to tell the truth. And then, okay, well, I'm leaving then. I'm going to Mexico. And then they tell the truth, and then they just dig up the body, and you get a very, very American Beauty-like speech from Josh Peck's video recording. Yeah, I think, again, this film is telling this story that is so familiar to us, of like the group who kills someone accidentally, then they hide it, and then you see the guilt happen. But the way that this is structured is it weighs on one side of the scale than the other. Like, it weighs on the lead up to it, like where they're really humanizing the victim and the perpetrators. And then once it's happened, we don't have much of the film left to really languish in the aftermath of it. And so you rely on the filmmaking techniques of visuals of like moody shots and a Culkin looking sad and so on. But I think that's just the nature of this film. Like, I have to take it at what it's doing, like how it's presenting itself in this way. So second half was good, but it's not what I'm going to be ever thinking of this movie for.
That's pretty much where I'm lying on it too. Yeah, it really was the second half of the film. But it kind of just felt like the same kind of tone going the whole way through. Obviously, we had little moments there, like there was a lot of arguing in that third quarter. But then once everyone went home, it kind of just stayed on that, other than like the Marty scenes where it was him talking to his brother, paging him at one point. That was funny. And yeah, when it does get to, that final scene of, the full recording of what Josh Peck recorded that morning, I really, really liked that.
Same.
I will admit I was welling up a little bit. But yeah, everything, between him dying and getting up to that, it did kind of feel like the same tone.
That's one strong camera. That's one strong fucking camera.
Yeah, at first, because going back to what you were saying, knowing what was coming, him recording everything was like, oh, he's making the evidence kind of thing. And they actually kind of address throughout the film, like, well, we got to get rid of that camera because
it's gone.
It's evidence. So I was like, oh, okay, they're kind of self-aware, but it was found in the end.
What could they do? It's down the river.
Yeah, true.
They were never going to be able to find it. The cops somehow did.
Yeah. The film constantly refers to the Clyde character and his two dad and, throws a bunch of slurs at him. I did like that when we did get the scene of the two dads. They were like very genuinely good parents.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think that was the best scene of the post-death. It was the scene in which a character was not doing okay that actually resonated the most, because in a story like this, you're waiting for those scenes where the characters can no longer bear the weight of it. And for the majority of them, they all seemed relatively like broken up about it, but they were coping on the surface well enough.
Yeah, like I was waiting for moments where like either Millie or the two brothers were gonna have like their parents walking back, hey, is everything okay? And it's like, how are they gonna
Or like
function?
Millie comes home and she sees herself in the mirror. I was waiting for her to like cry.
Yeah.
But she didn't. And that's fine. You don't need it. But that's why that scene with the family unit at the dinner table worked really well, because he's trying not to cry.
Yeah.
But you can see he is.
And you can see that the two dads, they're just like, they're not taking their eyes off him. Like, they can see something
It
is
was
wrong.
one of those things where I found it just truly strange, where they're part of the wrap up is like, oh, we've got to hand ourselves in, and they go to the mother first,
Yeah.
Josh Peck's mum. And that was so strange because we see the alpha guy being like, I'll clean up all the messes. There's no way they can connect it to us once my brother vouches. And then it's like, oh yeah, the other one, the Culkin, was like, oh, I'll reveal everything to the mum, who would have known about this trip in the first place. Like,
well, no, she didn't know about the trip.
did she not? Did Josh Peck's mum not know about this trip?
The whole thing with the phone call that the big brother gives to Josh Peck is like, you can't tell anyone. And then when you do see the mum, like she's busy exercising, she doesn't even look at Josh Peck.
Right. Okay. You got me, film. That's one of those details that slipped me by. That's fine.
That's fine too. But yeah, and again, going back to the thing about how, you know, they thought about the camera thing ahead of time. I was also impressed that, like, oh yeah, Marty thought about the eyewitnesses.
Yeah,
He addressed that.
And then he robbed a liquor store, or whatever, the convenience store, and then that's the last we see of him. No, it was okay. Can I have a side tangent, or is there anything else you want to discuss about the film itself first?
No, let's hear the tangent.
We went to university and we studied drama, and there's someone in our degree, in our unit, that afterwards went on to become a writer of plays, and they own their own theater company. And I saw a play of theirs called something like something about boys, something with boys, and it was like construction workers who accidentally kill a sex worker. It
was like a very bad things kind of thing.
Yes,
yeah.
And I said, oh, I was in a room full of sycophants who were like, so unique, so unusual. I've never seen this type of story before. And I said, without trying to be mean or vindictive, I'm like, oh, really? I've seen so many of these. And then when I was asked by the person who wrote the play, who we know, and other patrons, what are some examples? I listed like 5 or 6 examples. Now I have a 7th. Like this, this type of story exists. And I just wanted to mention that because I was constantly thinking about that play during all of this, about like, oh, so unique. I've never seen any story like this one before, where a group of friends accidentally kill someone in a way that they weren't expecting. And now you have to see which one will become the leader of the group and convince the others to double down and hide and be complicit in the murder. Yeah. And I'm like, I have seen this before, but apparently no, it's unique and special. Mean Creek, although it came out in 2004, it was actually inspired by that play.
And it's good
because it came out like over a decade later.
And it's good because those people probably might have possibly grown up with Drake and Josh. You'd be like, oh yeah, Josh Peck's in it.
And again, most of the people were way older than us. So
he was a bit older. So
yeah. Yes. Older. Our friend that we're talking about is a few years older than us, and then all the patrons are like 50-plus-year-old people talking about it. I'm like, have you not watched or
Drake
read anything before? Definitely. Well, they better have had kids who watched Drake and Josh. So there you go. But that's all I have to say about Mean Creek. I did enjoy it overall. I like this movie. It won me over. That's always an important thing to point out, is some of these negatives that I'm mentioning were first reaction or gut reaction things, but as the movie played out and as I marinate on it, I have much more of an appreciation for it, a respect for it. I looked up the director, writer. He's had an interesting film career, not too many things. He has done I'm an indie director, but they also grabbed me for a sequel to a big property that is, a garbage movie. He did Rings, the sequel to Ring, that came out like 2017. Like, it's a terrible film. So he's one of those people who did get chewed into the Hollywood system of like, you did some indie films. We can trust you to do a big tentpole movie. And if you fail, that's your fault. It's a trend. People look it up. It's a whole thing.
Do we count Ryan Johnson as that?
Ryan Johnson, I guess, would count in that way for sure because he did smaller films.
Yeah.
I can't remember what Looper was a bigger film, I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh, that's true. I was thinking more
but-
for the right.
I was thinking of
No, not Rise
Josh.
of Skywalker.
No,
Last Jedi.
I was thinking of Josh Trank, where he did like Chronicle, and that was a great film. And then he did Fantastic Four, and it ruined his life.
I
And
saw
his career.
Chronicle. I like that.
Yeah, but I recommend Mean Creek. There's plenty to dig into here. The character work and the acting was all real good. You will, if you are someone who has a tough time telling people apart, struggle for a majority of the film. These fucking boys all look alike. There's
Yeah, a
some
little
distinguishing, like Marty is like got big eyebrows,
Tends to wear like singlets. and
singlets.
stuff.
You know, there is difference, but I was like, man, these fucking guys look so much alike.
Yeah, I think it'll take you a while. I usually struggle with that, but I, kind of got it once while they were on the trip.
Was it distracting how much of a Culkin that Culkin was?
Before even looking up who that was, I kept thinking like, oh, is that Macaulay Culkin? No, he'd be a bit too old.
We saw
at
him in
this point.
Saved by that point, or roughly around then, right?
Macaulay Culkin? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah.
He would have been a teenager by that point.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So when I found out at the end, like, oh, his last name's Culkin. Oh, I thought he was Macaulay Culkin. Oh, he's probably related. Oh, he is. There you go.
Culkin has, there's many Culkins.
Yeah.
Same year as Saved.
There you go. There you go. Definitely different. I recommend the film too, if nothing else. Like the high points of the film I really loved. It's worth it just for that alone. And yeah, it's really nice that this film went from like, oh, that's the thing that has that funny thing to that was actually a really emotional movie that I will be thinking about for quite a while. Check it out if you can.
It is my time to recommend a film for us to talk about.
Okay, we'll settle down, right? You sound too excited.
Because it's a year of musicals, and I have not picked a single musical yet. Is that is correct? I haven't done one yet. Welcome one and all to me finally doing it. Okay, sit down, everyone. I'm finally picking a musical.
The person who announced that this year is the year of musicals will be very happy that you're finally doing it.
Me in the past.
Now you're smiling. Your microphone's in the way, but I can see it in your eyes.
We're going to talk about Cabaret.
Mm-hmm.
The film Cabaret, which has some interesting cast members. I'm not too sure if you've ever seen Cabaret or know
haven't.
too much about it, but we are going to be talking about Cabaret. So everyone, make sure to find a copy of that yourself and give it a watch. Give it a watch over, and then you can listen to us talk about it in all of the details that we can or that we're interested in. Maybe we'll focus solely on the songs, the music, or maybe the filmmaking. Who knows? Or the actors that do turn up.
Those are all elements of the film.
Well, not all. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I haven't seen it, so it's a bold statement.
Maybe I'm lying. Maybe there's no actors.
Oh.
Have you ever thought about that, mister?
I love no actor musicals.
No actor music. Well, yeah. Those are just called, they filmed the instruments.
Yeah.
But
Film objects and dub singing over it.
when I was looking up musicals, I already had a few, but I was like, oh, what are some others that I may be missing? They had some interesting choices for what count as musicals. And I'm like, I guess so. Like some movies where there's like a song in it. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, here's how I would describe it. It's like, this would be a list if they included Down with Love as a musical, where Down with Love had us musical number in the end credits.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a musical.
That's like last week when I asked, like, is School of Rock a musical?
Not particularly. It's just, it's got music
I think
in
it's
it,
been
okay?
adapted into a musical.
That's what I said. I'm
Oh, you
pretty sure
did?
it has.
There you go.
But I wouldn't be shocked. But maybe people, you'll argue School of Rock is a musical. I don't know if I count those like band movies in the same way
Band
as
Slam's
musicals.
a musical.
Kind of, not really, is it? But
Music
Camp,
adjacent.
But Camp Rock is a musical, that type of thing. But we will debate what is or isn't a musical in film next time on the pod, as well as discuss Cabaret. You can find us on social medias of Facebook and Twitter under Spit and Polish Presents. If you want to recommend movies to us or let us know your thoughts and opinions, you can just ping us on those social medias, or you can directly contact us at our email address, which is
spitandpolished@gmail.com.
gmail.com, spit and polished.
Yeah, we getting Google in this bitch.
Google in this bitch. We're on all of those podcasting sites, including YouTube. I know that they're really trying to push podcasts on YouTube, but we were already there pretty much from early days of us releasing our episodes. So you can come over to that or any of the other podcasting sites, rate, review, or leave a comment. It would be very much appreciated, as well as share the show around. Maybe one of your best friends is a big Mean Creek fan, and they need to hear my opinions and Bartek's opinions about a Culkin.
Maybe they love the title and they want to hear us not like the title.
It's so funny that we never referred to which Culkin. Just a Culkin. Just keep calling him a Culkin. Which one?
I didn't even remember. It was like Rory Culkin.
Rory,
or something?
yeah. There's several Culkins.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, there's several Culkins. There's one that was recently in a successful TV show called Succession, and he was also in. Did you ever watch Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
The movie? I Reese lent it to me once.
Yeah, his gay housemate. That's a Culkin.
Oh, yeah.
That's Kieran.
I think I've heard that was a Culkin.
And if you know that, you can definitely see it. It seems like Macaulay's the blonde one, and then the rest aren't.
Is he the oldest or the middle?
Who, Macaulay?
Yeah.
I don't know the inner workings of the Culkin. I barely knew how to pronounce their name at the start of this podcast.
That's true.
How the fuck do you think? I don't know, but I think Macaulay is the elder.
I know that the one in this is the youngest.
But and of course, Macaulay Culkin is married to Brenda Song, who was, I do believe, a Disney actress. So there you go. It all comes back. I think, was The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody a Disney?
I think so, yeah.
She was in that. So there we are.
My basis for that is it wasn't on Nickelodeon.
It wasn't on Nick, but thank you so much. All right, until next time, everyone, remember to be kind to each other or else, okay?
Or else we're going to bring on the penis.
Man of La Mancha.
Man of penis.
I really didn't do my Josh Peck impression during all of this. I was a good boy. I kept it in. I kept it in until the very end. Man of penis.
Yeah, last week when you're like, you just want to hear my Josh Peck impression, I was like, no, I think
you really do.
I wouldn't mind hearing your impression of the famous scene, but yeah, I didn't pick it for the Josh Peck impression, but I'm glad we got it in the end.
I have an LD.
Because I mentioned before, I skimmed through the Drillbit Taylor episode, and you were very much talking up your impression of that in there.
It's a killer impression.
Yeah, you said basically the same thing. It's like, I think I do a really good Josh Peck impression.
It's the only impression I can do.